Oftentimes, when we come to Christ, we put the emphasis on what we need to do for Christ. Okay, we got to do this, we got to do that. But as we look at these Beatitudes, it's really about what? What we become in Christ. And a lot of times, sometimes in churches, we'll say, well, why did people burn out? People burn out because they did everything on the outside, but they weren't changed on the inside. Right. The inside wasn't changed. And so, if the inside is changed, if God changes us on the inside, how can we inherit the earth? Well, we could buy it. There's people like David Copperfield who's actually bought an island in the South Pacific. It's a 150-acre island. He has a 30-person staff. And you can rent a room there for $52,000 a night. So think about that on your next vacation. And or how else we could try to steal it. People do that. They steal things. We could try to conquer it. And we've had history of dictators rising up trying to conquer the earth. There's others who obtain it through political means. Through politics, they try to obtain parts of the earth. And or we could become a disciple of Christ.
Amen. That's right. Amen.
We could become a disciple of Christ. He says, blessed are the meek, and what? They shall what? Inherit the earth. Now, think about this. I want you to think about this. Jesus is coming, right? And he's beginning his ministry. And his disciples believe that this is the Messiah that they have been waiting for. And in their mind, now, these Beatitudes, the disciples didn't understand them till later, did they? And as they were looking at the Messiah, they were thinking of a conqueror like David that was going to come. Of course, they were under Roman rule, and they had to be submissive to Herod, and they had many difficulties there. So when they thought of the Messiah, they were thinking of a great conqueror. They were thinking of somebody that was going to come and overthrow the Roman government. And so Jesus comes, you got all these crowds here, and he's preaching this famous sermon, the Sermon on the Mount. And he gets up and he says, blessed are the meek. And so they're probably thinking, what is he talking about? That's not what we want to hear. We're ready we're ready for the takeover. And so he says this message, blessed are the meek. You know, sometimes we don't read our Bible because we don't want to hear what it says. I remember one time we were on furlough, and so we're having some difficulties with the ministry. Guess nothing's going to work today. Total breakdown. So we went to talk with a pastor friend of ours, and he was one of our Bible professors, and so we were looking for vindication and validation. Because we were wronged, and we had these people that wronged us, and these problems, and these hurts, and we were looking for him to give us a pat on the shoulder and say, you poor missionaries, you suffered. And as we talked to him, he said, what did I tell you? What did I teach you in Bible college? In 1 Corinthians chapter 4. You guys are under rowers. You know those Roman slave ships? They didn't have diesel engines. They had slaves. And in the bottom of the boat, you had the guys that were rowing. And that was, now they didn't have any union to protest the conditions of the workplace. If they protested, they would have probably got thrown overboard. Had no rights. And of course, in Bible college, we learn that that word is the word that Paul uses for servant. And so, instead of being patted on the back and validated, we realized that's what the ministry is about. Being a servant. And so we come here and he says, blessed are the meek. Now, there's a few misconceptions about meek. Okay? Meek doesn't mean you talk with a squealy voice. Okay? Meek does not mean that people can walk all over you without saying anything. Okay? Remember that, husbands. Okay? Meekness in our culture, and even if you look at the thesaurus, says it suggests meekness as a person that is gentle, calm, submissive, soft, spineless, passive, and broken. That's what the thesaurus defines meekness as. And so as we think of the word meek, we don't have a very good concept of it. It's almost like something that's weakness. You know, meekness is weakness. We've heard that saying. And so we don't think of it as something that, you know, we're, especially as men, we're looking for pride, we're looking for power, we're looking to be aggressive. And so as we think of this word meekness, we're like, I don't know if I like that. I don't understand how that benefits and helps me. Now, remember, as Jesus talks about poor in spirit, those that mourn, and the meek in spirit, remember that these are the spiritual disciplines with which we fight the spiritual battle. Jesus was known as what? A meek person. So remember that the attitudes of the flesh and of the world and what is accepted in society are not the characteristics or the attitudes that we can win the spiritual battle with. And so as we look at this meekness, there's the misconceptions, but then there's the biblical meaning of meekness. And the term in Greek means to tame wild animals. And when we understand, we talked about the poor in spirit, when we understand ourselves and our need for God, and that through His power He can change us, we put away our self-serving and our demanding, and we remember we need God's power. And so another definition of meekness is power under control. That's what it means. Power that is under control. Or we could say God's power to control our lives. Or we could say it like this: spiritual composure, rooted in trust in God, which responds in peace to difficult people or difficult situations. So spiritual composure, rooted in what? Trust in God, which responds in peace to what? Difficult people. You don't have any difficult people in your life, do you? Huh? That's why we all have that dream. We live alone in a cabin up in the woods somewhere. We don't have to deal with anybody. As long as you're in this world, you're going to have to deal with difficult people. That's part of it. But meekness is God's power to have that spiritual composure to not to yell at. And to respond with peace. How did Jesus respond? Think about how he responded in his ministry. He wasn't spineless, was he? He didn't back down from situations. He confronted very difficult situations and confrontations, but he never lost his cool, did he? Now, I would have called the 10,000 legions of angels. For sure. I'm trying to call them down all the time. It's not working. And so he did it. He had that spiritual composure where he was able to keep himself. Why? Because what was the root of it? The root of it is he trusted in God.
Amen.
Now Psalm 37 talks about meekness. And the whole psalm, but Psalm 37:8 says, cease from anger, forsake wrath. Don't get fretted. Don't fret yourself in any way of those that do evil. He said, the evildoers will be cut off. Those that wait upon the Lord, what they shall inherit the earth. For yet a little while the wicked shall not be, yea, you shall search diligently, consider his place, and he won't be there. You'll go looking for him, you'll find him. But the meek shall inherit the earth, and shall delight themselves in the abundance of peace. And so the meek are the ones that inherit the earth. Now, a couple things about meekness. Meekness, first of all, is the work of God. Galatians 5, one of the fruit of the Spirit is meekness, gentleness, humility. So, as we look at the Beatitudes, this is not something that you can you're going to come down there and say, I'm going to be more meek. That's not going to happen. It starts on the inside. It's the work of God. We say the poor in spirit. What are we talking about, this poor in spirit? We realize our sinfulness and our need for God. We can't do it all our own. And so, meekness is the work of God. And then, meekness starts in your heart. Your outward expressions manifest what is in your heart.
Right.
So if we have an angry spirit, or we manifest anger, it is in our heart. It's not just a slip up. It's there, and it needs to be dealt with in the heart. So meekness, that composure, that power to control, that humility to rely on God, it starts in our heart. And then will come out on the outside. Meekness, number 3, trust in God. That's how we can do it. Because our flesh doesn't naturally respond in a gentle and humble manner. Our flesh wants to lash out. Our flesh wants to make its point known. Our flesh wants revenge. Where gentleness, trust God that God is in control. And I trust God, first of all. I know who I am in Christ. So I don't have to lash out. And second of all, I know God will work all things out. No matter how difficult the person or the circumstance is, God in His sovereignty will work the situation out. And so, meekness comes from a trust in God. And then, meekness means we're teachable. Teachable. It doesn't matter the age, the physical age. I mean, you meet people sometimes, their physical age. And you see how they live, you think they should actually be teenagers. Because they don't act their age. Although you meet some young people that are very mature, and you say, they don't act their age. But spiritually speaking, Christian, we should never come to a point where, we're too good to be taught. We always have to be teachable. We always learn new things. Always like to learn new things. That's one of the things that helped me with, we're doing the renovation. Helped me in construction because I don't know a lot. So I'm always asking a lot of questions. And I'm always willing to learn something new. If somebody comes and wants to show me a new way. I remember in Romania, when I first started dealing with people, construction, I realized that there was this professional pride. And it's like, all right, we know how to do it. We've been doing it this way for years. And you're not going to show us anything. Well, 20 years after Revolution, all the new construction methods and materials came in from the West. And a lot of the old timers were left behind because they weren't willing to be taught. So it doesn't matter if you think you have everything. A meek person is willing to be taught. And then a meek person is peaceable. Peaceable, seeks peace. James 3:13. And then a meek person does not retaliate. Our society is geared towards retaliation. Our government. You think about that. All right, we had somebody bomb us. We're going to retaliate. We're going to bomb somebody. Doesn't matter how many thousands get killed. We're going to retaliate. Many movies have the theme that we're going to get revenge, and the whole movie is about getting revenge and retaliation. No, we trust in God. We trust that God's going to work it all out. Nobody is going to get away with anything. God's the ultimate judge, and nobody is going to get away with anything. And so, blessed are the meek. Remember we said blessedness means accepted by God. Now, I'll take you two illustrations about meekness. The Red Sox just signed a pitcher
Amen.
for $217 million for 7 years. I can't fathom that. I think that means if I had a $1 million house, I could have 217 of those. I wouldn't have time to live in them all, let alone renovate them all. Now, why would any team spend, they could have got John Lester for 160 last year, but anyways, why would any team spend all that money for a pitcher?
Because they need the help.
But think about pitching. Isn't pitching an example of power and control?
Sure.
I mean, you're pitching that ball. That ball goes, some of these guys throw it 100 miles an hour. Now, what is it from home plate to the pitcher? What is it, 60 feet? Or how?
60 feet, 6 inches.
Huh?
60 feet, 6 inches.
60 feet, 6 inches. And so can you imagine that ball coming to you at 100 miles an hour? Now, there are probably a lot of guys that can throw it at 100 miles an hour. But there's a problem, isn't it? Control. First of all, you don't want to kill the guy. Right? That's coming 100 miles an hour. You better make sure it's going somewhere near the catcher's mitt. Right? And then if you get 4 balls, you walk the guy, and then you walk and put a bunch of guys on base. That always comes back. So power, right? Power. We have these pitchers today that throw 90, 95, 100, even over 100. So you want pitchers that have powerful arms, but control. Especially if you're a relief pitcher. You remember when Dennis Eckersley became a relief pitcher? You come in the game, you got the bases loaded, you can't be out of control, can you? You got to control that. So power, all right, under control. And because David Price has done this for years, the Red Sox are willing to give him $217 million. I wish I wouldn't have blown my pitching career years ago. And when I was in Little League, and the coach said, "I want you to pitch." Well, I didn't. Nobody coached me. My dad was not around, and so I was warming up. I said, "Man, I want to pitch," because I was always pitching in my basement, you know. And as I was warming up, I didn't know you had to warm up slow. I threw my arm up. I got up to pitch, and my arm was aching. Well, I had neither power nor control.
Everybody.
And the coach had to come and bring in a reliever. That was the last of my pitching career. Now, think about this. Power under control for a father. Meekness. Okay? What are the two extremes that a father does to destroy his home? Two extremes. One, he's so indifferent. Never says anything, never disciplines, never gives an example. Lets the kids do it. Never around. Kids do what they want. He's absent. What's the other extreme? That would be no power at all. The other extreme is power out of control. Power out of control. Abusive, whether it's physically or verbally or mentally. I'm the dad, you do what I say, doesn't matter what I do. I'm going to yell louder, throw things around. That's power out of control. What's the balance? Blessed are the meek. Power under control. Reliance and trust on God. And letting God work through that man. The extremes are out of balance. Whether it's a pitcher, whether it's a dad, whether it's a worker, whether it's a mother, whether it's any one of us, whether it's in church, with our relationships. The two extremes. Jesus said, "Blessed are the meek. They shall inherit the earth." It won't be David Copperfield. I mean, about that island. But it's not his. It won't be the dictators that rise and fall and conquer large pieces of land and countries only to be overthrown eventually. It won't be the people that have stolen. And when their Ponzi schemes fall, they end up losing it all. Going to jail. Jesus said, "The meek shall inherit the earth." The meek are the ones that realize the power of God under control in their lives, trusting in God for God to work.